I never seen the doctor about that either. Yeah. It's, I'm too old now to worry about those things, man.
All right. All right, Dad, you ready?
Yeah, I'm
Man,
ready.
Thanks for doing this.
No problem.
It's, I've been looking forward to it. So,
Yeah.
well, I'd like to. I got a bunch of notes that I've prepared
Oh, yeah.
of how
yeah.
to direct this conversation.
Yeah.
All right, so we get as much as your life as possible in a conversation. So you're born in 1934,
Yeah.
but before that, before you were born, what do you know about your parents and your family history before you?
Well, the only thing I doesn't know that much before that, but I know my mother's what you call it? My mother's father. He was French.
Okay.
You know that, do
Yeah, I
you? That's
remember.
why you got a musketeer
Yeah.
name.
I remember you telling me
But
that.
he was already dead the time I born, because apparently he was much older than her mother.
Okay.
Yeah, her mother, I seen the time, I remember her mother still, but I think up to I was 4 or 5, that I remember that she gave me some sweets that time as she was sitting down.
Yeah.
But she died the time she was 86. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how old were you when she passed away?
Eh?
Do you remember her much or not really? Your mother's mum, do you remember her much?
I remember her very lightly.
Yeah.
The time I was a kid.
Yeah.
But, well, not she was actually living in with a sister of my mom. She didn't have her own place, and she was living with my mom's sister that time.
Okay.
And she died there too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that far walking from my place the time we were living in Notenplein. And they were living more by Plein, what I remember. And there was possibly I was maybe about 6 still, that I even walked to that place too.
So it wasn't far away?
No, it wasn't far away, no. There's, that's about all. And what my father's parents concern, they were, I remember now, they were living not that far away, but much further than, And my father at time brought me a couple of times to his parents that time.
Yeah.
But I cannot really much remember of them, to be honest. I remember a little bit the way they, but you have to remember those days were totally different. People were, in the sense of, there was no TVs.
Yeah.
There were no radios yet. Well,
Yeah.
There was a radio, but it was not many people had radios to show you. Watches, there was unheard for, red watches,
Yeah.
And the main transport that time was just usually a bicycle.
Yeah.
That was it. And it was only, the few people that had cars. There were mainly doctors,
Yeah.
Professional people.
Sure.
Yeah, and that was it.
Yeah. And your father's parents Were they just Dutch people?
Oh, yeah. The chauffeur I know, they... doesn't... Not really much about them, but the only way is that they were Dutch, yeah.
Because I remember you telling me that your father had some German. Was that?
Pardon?
I remember you telling me that your father had some German.
Yeah, well, most likely that I believe, but I'm not sure,
Yeah.
that it was my father or my mother, my father's mother, I'm not sure. They had some German connections.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's all I can tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your father's name was also Peter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be named the name to my father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your mother was Johanna?
Yeah, Johanna Geertruida Musketeer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your father was Pieter Vijn?
Yeah.
Did he have a middle name at all? Or no, not really.
No, the middle name was also Theodorus.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, my middle name is Theodorus too.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah,
I know that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So they would have lived through the First World War then, your parents?
Yeah, most likely, yeah.
Did they ever talk to you about the First World War?
Nah, they never talked to me. Yeah.
All right.
You have to remember that we were only kids.
Yeah,
You
sure.
cannot start talking to a kid 5-6 years about the war from maybe 20 years ago or so, 15 years ago. I honestly don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's definitely...
Yeah. Well, that's all I can tell you.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
So then you're born in 1934.
Yeah.
And I got some facts here from 1934, from when you were born.
Yeah.
So Edwin Hubble shows as many galaxies as the Milky Way has stars. You know,
Say that again?
You know the Hubble telescope?
I heard about it.
The telescope that can look into space, into the galaxy.
Yeah.
One of the first photos was shown on that.
Yeah.
The year you were born.
Yeah.
Do you remember Bonnie and Clyde?
What?
Bonnie and Clyde.
Nah.
You don't know about them?
Nah.
Well,
Bonnie and Clyde, you say?
Yeah.
I heard something about it.
They died the year you were born.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. And Adolf Hitler rose to power.
Yeah. He came up in that time.
The year you were born.
Yeah.
Just check.
Yeah, you know more than I do, mate.
I just did a little bit of research to.
Yeah. No, Adolf Hitler. I think he came in power.
Yeah, the year you were born. August the 2nd. So not long after you were born. Yeah.
I wouldn't know that, but yeah. I'd be pretty sure you will be right about that.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, the historical facts.
So, I first want to cover from when you were up to 5 years old.
Yeah.
So, in the years following your birth, just to help jog your memory a little bit more, in 1935, Mussolini invades Ethiopia. Mussolini.
Yeah, I know, but it was 35, wasn't it?
35.
Yeah, not 45.
Yeah, and then in 36, China and Japan, they had a war that begins.
Yeah.
1937, Japan invades China.
Yeah, I heard about that too.
1938, around 20 to 30,000 Jews were sent to concentration camps.
Say that again?
In 1938,
Yeah.
about 20 to 30,000 Jews were sent to concentration camps. Jewish people.
Yeah, but that was not in 45.
In 38. 1938.
No, that must be 39 or 40. Because 45, the war was finished.
Yeah, but I looked online and it said in 1938 they
48, the war was...
38.
Oh, 38.
That's when they started sending them.
That started,
Yeah, and then 1939, that's when World War II begins. 39.
39.
39.
39, not 49.
39.
39.
39, yes.
Yeah.
So this is the first 5 years of your life.
Yeah.
So within 5 years, you've been introduced to World War II.
Yeah.
What do you remember up to 5 years old?
Well, listen, the historical facts you just tell me now about China and all the things.
Yeah.
I didn't know the time I was 5 years old.
Yeah, sure.
But I was the time I went to school and then history.
Yeah.
And then I was teached it. They get the information from what was happening in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, the same as the information you got from Napoleon that well back, that he conquered Europe too.
Yeah.
Napoleon, you go forward, and then you get the Roman Empire, all those things.
Yeah.
But, I've been taught that, Yeah, but I wasn't aware of it at the time I was 5 years old. No.
Sure, but what do you remember when, in your childhood, up to when you were 5? Do you remember anything, being a kid?
No, after 5, no.
Before you were...
I remember the time, that was very lightly that I went to school that time. Yeah.
When you started school.
There was, started school. And, that was interrupted at the time with the German invasion.
Yeah. And is that when you were 5?
That was, I must have been 6 years, not 5.
Okay.
6 years, because 1940, and I believe it was in May, that the Germans invaded Holland.
Okay, yeah. So it would have been the year after.
Yeah. And, and I remember the name of the school teacher.
Yeah.
That school teacher. Her name was Scheurkogel. That's a typical Dutch name.
Yeah, it's a rough name.
Yeah, it's a rough name. But she was a nice lady, I remember.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's amazing you remember that.
Yeah, it just happened to be. There are certain things I still remember. Yeah.
I actually remember you learned how to make paper airplanes at school, right?
Oh, yeah, paper airplanes.
And you taught me how to do the same.
Ah, yeah, no, that was a school that we get all the paper airplanes.
Because you used to make them for me when I was a kid.
Oh, that must have been, yeah.
And when I made it at school, once I was at school, and everyone had to make a paper airplane, and to see whose would go the farthest.
Yeah.
And it didn't go the furthest, but no one ever saw a paper airplane built like how you showed me.
Yeah.
No one's ever seen that before.
Yeah.
It's very unique. It must be a Dutch thing.
I don't know, but I still know how to do it.
Because it looks really complex compared to other.
Well, yes, it possibly is.
Yeah, it looks pretty complex.
Yeah. But that was the time. I remember the time. In the first and second year at school, that we were learning folding papers.
Yeah.
And not only aeroplanes, also sort of, I can't remember now, but to make the same things they make here, they just sort of you can call that.
Origami?
Yeah, no, but some like a rocket, with, I will fold one for you one day.
Yeah.
yeah. But I can't remember now what. And there were a lot of other things we were learning that, and the only one actually that really stick to me was that aeroplane. I'll show you. Yeah. All the other things are slowly, lost in my memory.
Sure. All right, so the next increment of time is when from 1940 to 1945. So you would have been about 5 to 11 years old.
Yeah.
And just like you said, in 1940, Hitler invades Holland, Denmark, Belgium, France, and Luxembourg.
Yeah.
In 1941, Japan attacks Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
In 1942, the U.S. government establishes the Manhattan Project.
No, I don't know. 1941.
42.
Yeah, no, but 1941
Yeah.
was another major event that the Germans started to invade Russia.
Yeah, but they didn't do it, right?
They did.
Oh, they did invade Russia.
They invade Russia. Didn't you know that?
I thought they got stopped.
No. Later on.
Yeah, okay.
But that was years later.
Sure.
But that is more or less the German army was more or less defeated in Russia.
Okay.
And the first of all, they made big progress till they came on to Moscow.
Yeah.
But that time, the winter started.
Yeah, I heard about this. Yeah.
And they couldn't. They apparently, and the cold. You have to remember that in those days, I don't know, it seems to be milder now, but they had 40 minus degrees.
Yeah.
40 minus.
That's
the
crazy.
German army lost about, I think, 1.5 million soldiers just frozen dead.
Yeah, you would have been. That's horrible.
They did not have the special, they were not prepared for that.
No.
And they didn't have the clothing for that. And then the Russians started, and they had the clothing. But see, what actually happened was, the Russian army was defeated. Totally defeated.
Sure.
Yeah. But what happened then was Stalin, he had Siberian troops, but they were standing on the Japanese border. Because
Japanese border?
Yeah, because Russia also, Siberia, what is Russia, that is lined up with not with the Japanese, but there is a little sea there.
Yeah, like the coast.
And they were frightened for the Japanese because they were building up.
Yeah.
And they thought the Japanese would invade Russia too, Siberia.
Sure.
But then the Japs was in 1941. That's just what you say there. They started the war with the U.S.
Yeah.
With attacking Hawaii.
Yeah, Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor. Yeah.
Sure. So then after.
And then after that, there's that time, the Japanese they attacked Pearl Harbor, and that was the time that Stalin said, "Well, they're not going my way anymore."
Sure.
And he took the Siberian army, and they were well trained in cold. They were all in sheepskin,
Yeah.
And he brought them back to Moscow.
Yeah.
And they only had a train. There was only a one-track train they had. Dus it took a little while. It wasn't only the army, but also the armaments, what is involved with, was all transported to Moscow. And that was the, more or less the turning point in the Second World War. for the Germans.
I heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the next year, just the Germans.
Sure, but like let's, because I got here a couple of things, and we can go through the history. But really, what I want to know, I'm just saying all these things for you to jog your memory a bit. But from when you were 5 to 10 years old, what do you remember about your life at the time? Because in 1945, Hitler committed suicide and Germany surrenders, right? So you would have been about 10 or 11.
Yeah.
So from when you were 5 till 10 or 11, actually, you would have been April 30. You would have been 11 at the time when he died, when he committed suicide.
Yeah.
What do you remember about that time, you personally?
No, listen.
When you were growing...
I remember a little bit further down. It's in 1943.
Yeah.
At the time we had to walk to school.
Yeah.
Of course, there was no any transport. Now, what's happened was that in where we living, Ockenburg. You been Ockenburg? You know Ockenburg?
No, I don't know. I went to Gazeplein.
To who?
Gazeplein? That's where you used to live.
Well, Notenplein.
Oh, Notenplein, yeah.
But a little bit further down, Notenplein.
Yeah.
That was a sort of an airfield that time, or I don't know. And that was called Ockenburg.
Yeah.
And the Germans, that time they shooting, or they took rockets up to London. Now, and to defend them, they didn't have much planes because everything was on the Eastern Front. Yeah. And they were shooting those rockets to London, and then the British got Spitfires. I don't know if you remember Spitfire.
Yeah. I remember we saw one at the museum.
And they came over, and then there was some of the German Messerschmitts came in, and they start shooting, and then the part of the bullets, it all rained down on the streets. Yeah. And once we were walking to school, and it happened a couple of times, and then there was an air, after the rocket went up, and then the British airplanes tried to shoot them down before they actually went up.
So was the Spitfires versus...
The Spitfire was versus the rocket. Yeah. But then on the same time, the Germans defended the rocket with their Messerschmitts.
That was their airplane?
Yeah. Okay. That was their airplane.
Sure.
Yeah. And then sometimes all that stuff from shooting each other, there wasn't the real bullets anymore, but it was actually all scrap metal.
Sure.
That dropped down.
Yeah.
And that's happened a couple of times, the time we walked to school, just in that. But the people were very nice always. As soon as that happened, they pulled us inside.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any kid was outside, that if we were walking, there was in a street, there's all houses just like here. Yeah. And straight away, they came in and pulled us inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's as the...
How did that feel when you had to... How did that feel for you? Do you remember how you felt when you were a child?
Well, yeah.
And you had to walk to school and it's raining. Did you understand what was going on?
Yeah, you understand in the sense of that... that there is danger, but I knew from the rockets. Me as kid saw the rockets going up.
Wow.
From thing.
Yeah.
And there was one. Sometimes they were shot down. There was one rocket and that came not that far from where we were living.
Mm.
Yeah. And I don't know if there was a whole area in The Hague, part of The Hague. It was not the area where we living, but it was not that far off, but it was a whole area that was called Bezuidenhout.
Yeah.
And that was totally flattened by the British, for the reason that there was also rockets going up there.
Wow.
Yeah, and dus they flattened it, actually.
How?
Hey?
How did they flatten it? With rockets or with airplanes?
No, with airplanes.
Wow.
That was the Lancaster airplane. Yeah. And I remember ook als a kid one day, we were sleeping, and there was the British, that was in 1943, I don't know if you heard about it, they called them the Dambusters.
No.
Oh, no.
I haven't heard about that.
And those airplanes, they were very low. They didn't go high, they went very low.
Mm.
And the reason for very low is you can't shoot airplanes down if they go very low. You know that. You ever heard about that?
No, I haven't.
Well,
heard
it
of
is. Because if you're behind here, and the Germans had everywhere those cannons
Yeah.
to shoot
Oh,
up.
sure. Okay. Yeah,
But
that
if
makes
you
sense.
go low,
Yeah, you don't have the trajectory.
they can't
Yeah,
thing.
okay.
And they went very low over, just maybe. And the noise the time I was in my bedroom, and my mom said, "Oh God, they're coming low over now." But later on we found out that the dams were busted in Germany, the water dams. And that was a big...
The dams.
The dams, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And you have to remember those dams are very important. You know, every city, every factory, you need water.
Yeah, sure.
And because to bomb those, they made successful what they did.
Yeah.
And that was, of course, the production
Yeah.
went down, of course,
Yeah.
for
And
the war material.
do you remember anything else in your life, for you personally, during this time?
Well, that's about it, yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, later on,
Yeah.
the time, then the Canadian Army, they came in.
Yeah.
That was in 45.
You remember seeing that?
Oh, yeah. We were, me and my brother were actually going. They let, those soldiers, the war was over.
Yeah.
But there was the army was still, well, the first after fighting there in France, and then they come over, still went through. And me and my brother, we were going the jeeps there in the thing.
The what?
Jeeps.
Oh, jeeps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We sitting there in the soldiers were mostly all drunk most of the time.
Why?
Well, the war was over. and they were always on the liquor the time. Yeah. And that is we were in, me and my brother too, we went in the tanks too. They let her go in the tanks. They let the kids, they didn't bother about that.
So they're just all these drunk soldiers just letting kids.
Well, not
playing
always
tanks.
that they may be drunk, but they didn't bother too much about the kids coming on. They thought, well, we had a terrible time, and don't forget, the hunger winter, we reckon, that was in 44. What actually happened was, there was plenty of food in Holland still, with the farms, but the transport was cut.
Oh, okay.
You see, with all the bombs and thing, and the trains,
Yeah.
they couldn't run anymore.
Sure. So how did that affect you?
Well, it affected me
You and your family.
and my whole family, that there was no food.
So how did you survive then? For
Yeah.
how long was there no food?
Well, the thing is, I tell you, that went on for. Well, so a lot of people died those days.
So a lot of people.
Maybe it was the winter, and possibly was 6 or 7 months that there was no food. But there were other options to eat. And those options is me. It's a lot of kids too. Yeah. You went there were market gardeners, not the last time I was over there, but that time there was not far from our house. There were all market gardeners.
Yeah.
And then you sneak in and you eat the beans and silver beet, anything. And that's how you keep alive. And there was also, there were people, they were supposed to be food kitchens for the kids.
Yeah.
Then you could go with a pen, and then there was somewhere walking about, say, 10 minutes or quarter of an hour, and there was a truck. And there were no trucks that time. Everything was horse-drawn. There's no trucks. There was no any cars, nothing. For the reason there was no petrol, there was no oil. See? Everything was horse-drawn. And then we went to where the horses were in that thing, and then you fill in your pan with a little bit soup.
Yeah.
For the kids, to keep you going. And that's the way we survived.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Huh?
That's crazy.
Well, it is, but
To think of that ever happening today.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
You have to remember, there was no oil anymore.
Oil.
No, the petrol did it because all the transport was stopped.
Sure.
There's everybody that time also, they all had, everything was with horses.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's a vague memory now.
Yeah.
But, I think, I don't know, I might have a photograph that time from me and my brother. We just wear skin over bone. I think I still got.
We'll
there are
have
some things.
Let's have a look, and I'll put it up.
Huh?
I'll show the photo on this on the video later if we find it.
Oh, you already got it on the
No, we can find it, and I'll put it on later.
Yeah, I doesn't got the photo now.
We'll find it.
No, I got that maybe still home somewhere.
Yeah.
I had to have
So then, what
it.
was it like when World War II finishes? So what's it like after that?
Yeah, well then slowly everything became better.
Sure.
Yeah, and
because then we go at the end of World War II, which is 1945.
Yeah.
Then we go to 1946 to 1950. At this point, you're 11 to 16 years old.
Yeah.
So you're now becoming a teenager.
Yeah.
After World War II.
Yeah.
Oh, what's it like becoming a teenager just after a world war finishes?
Well, it's well, the thing was, my old man, he was a good father.
Yeah.
Up till it was maybe in the 50s, because he became funny. But up to then he was a good father, I must say that. But all I did, I was 12 years old,
Yeah.
and there were not many opportunities, but there was an opportunity for 12 years old to go to, they call that, what's happening?
No, nothing. Carry on.
Ambachtschool, that's a Dutch name for that. That's a trade school,
Yeah.
and I was taught the basics from carpentry.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was till about was 16, I believe, till I came off, 15 or 16, and then they gave me a job. Also in a building, more or less using, just helping building houses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
an apprentice.
Pardon?
Kind of like being an apprentice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's it. And then after that period, because at that time my old man, he was not, he got troubles with his heart that time.
Oh.
Yeah, there's another one. And he couldn't work anymore. And my mom had to go to work, but she didn't make that much money. And then the time I went to work, then we only could get a little bit of our money, as pocket money, maybe $5 or less than that.
Yeah.
And the wages was $20 a week, I remember. Well, in guldens that time. But, my old man, he was getting over the finances. And, he used that more or less to support the family.
Yeah.
Buying food and things like that. Dus that is that was the situation that time. But I became, I think after a year working as an apprentice, I'm not quite sure. It must be a year, 2 years or so. And I became sick of it. I couldn't see me getting any further ahead, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
I was a little bit
frustrated.
Rebellious.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So
and then one time I had an argument with my old man because there wasn't enough money coming in, and then I was that frustrated that I took my bike and I think for 3 or 4 days I went over to Belgium and with the bike. And
you just rode your bike to Belgium?
Yeah. And I thought by myself I might get somewhere accommodation and get some over
just
there.
Talking to the microphone.
But that in the end I decided to go back to my family. But then after that, how close you had to be.
No, you're talking away. Just talk into the microphone.
But
that's all right. That's fine.
Yeah. I thought by myself, well, I want to get freedom.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to rely on the foot of my parents anymore. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And that was the time I went to Rotterdam.
So you rode your bike from The Hague, Den Haag, to Rotterdam.
Yeah. And also before that, to Belgium too. Yeah. Oh, yeah, the long trips too.
Yeah, well,
and then Rotterdam, and then I can't remember now where I had the information from. And they told me to go somewhere, there was a special place. And then I could get on a boat. That was my first boat.
Yeah.
The name of that boat was a pretty...
So wait, you went from The Hague to Rotterdam to Belgium, and then you got on a boat.
No. I went to from first of all, I still came back to my family after
Okay.
Belgium, after the...
So what happened when you rode your bike to Belgium?
Well, I can't remember much of it.
It's a long trip because I've driven from...
Yeah, I know.
I've driven through through Belgium to get to it's a long way.
Yeah, I know.
It's a really long
I
way.
did that on the back.
It's crazy.
But I was that frustrated.
Yeah.
And you have to remember that time I was really fit too.
Yeah.
Not now
So
anymore.
I remember driving through Belgium.
Yeah.
We went from Paris to The Hague.
Yeah.
And just to get through Belgium is about 2-3 hours.
Yeah.
And just to get from the border of Belgium, Netherlands to The Hague is about another hour and a half.
Yeah.
By car.
By car.
On the motorway.
Yeah.
So I couldn't imagine.
But there was no motorways those days.
So, yeah, so how did you get there with no motor? Where do you go?
I can't. Just that time there was always bike strips in Holland.
Yeah.
You got everywhere. You got bike strips.
Yeah,
It's
that's
from the beginning on because there's always a bike country. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's not like here in New Zealand, but in the Netherlands, you might have seen it. You can go everywhere with your bike.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Dus, but I was that frustrated and I wanted to get myself a job in Belgium or so, that time. And I thought I possibly could make it. But then after that, I couldn't get any contact there. So nobody that I can work there. Dus in the end, I went back to my parents. But then staying there for maybe, I can't remember now, maybe a couple of weeks. And then I had enough of it. And I went to Rotterdam. I was told, I got some information. I can't remember now where it all came from. That I could get Rotterdam and could get on a boat there. You go to the office van in Rotterdam, all the offices van those boat companies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And then you
and
go.
How old were you then? What year was this?
It must have been 16.
16.
Yeah, I can't be any older than 16.
Sure. And
16, maybe 17.
And that's the Merchant Navy?
No, we're not in the Navy yet. That is
just the boat.
That is the, what you call the, I call that, Merchant Navy.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Merchant Navy, not the Navy.
Yeah.
That came later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then...
Dus I could get on the boat and then I was more or less like what they call that, op z'n Dutch language, was ketelbinky. What you had to do, you had to supply the officers, you have to go from the kitchen, get the food, and bring it to the tables of the officers. They're sitting on the table. And you have to do the cleaning up of the little huts, you call it, where the people sleeping.
Yeah.
And, this, it was just actually a rubbish job, really, to be honest. And then, you had to bring the captain coffee every morning at a certain time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just that type of thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
So then...
And that name of the boat was the Larenberg. Mind you, all those boats are beyond, they all be scrap metal now.
Yeah,
there's nothing left anymore, man.
Too old.
No, too old.
So that takes you up until you're 16 years old, right?
Yeah.
That's until you're 16. So
yeah.
In that time period from when you were 11 to 16, Italy abolishes the monarchy. Gandhi is assassinated. in 1948. The nation of Israel is proclaimed in 1948.
Mm.
1949, the Communist People's Republic of China is formally proclaimed by Mao Zedong.
Yeah, 49, yeah.
Which
I
is
know.
crazy
Yeah,
of how far China's come now.
yeah.
And then in 1950, the Korean War begins
Yeah.
with North Korea
Yeah.
when North Korean communist forces invade South Korea.
Yeah.
And so I'm guessing this is when you transition into the Navy.
No.
Because
No, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That the transition to the Navy, I was about 20 or 21.
Okay.
But in between, the time I came off that boat, I did one, I think it was one that we went to Portugal, Spain, Italy, and then eventually we came back. I think it was about 2 or 3 months be on that boat till we came back in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
All right. Now then, I noticed the time I was there in that rubber job, I said I could get a much better job if I go to school and go for engine driver.
Yeah.
And that was I think 6-7 months course.
That's it.
Yeah.
To be
Yeah. But then it's you get more or less. It is just like a training,
Sure.
not really just what's involved in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that time, and then you have to do an examination. Well, you got all the paperwork there for me. Yeah, and then I became an engine driver, and then from then on. I got a much higher salary, and I was somebody that was important. Well, more or less that you got a much better position than if you be in the other one. You know what I mean? Yeah, and he had a better salary, everything.
And so this is when you were.
And by the time I was engine driver, I was on my first boat, first of all, I had another practice run on another boat. It's about, I can't remember that name now. But it was only a short time, about 3 or 4 months. Well, I might come later.
Yeah,
but then
that's all right.
Then that was also a rubbish boat. It was an old, he was only there, I don't know, it was terrible. The conditions were terrible. But then I got on a better boat, and that was the Schokland. And that was a pretty good boat. And I was over there on that boat, I think for 5 years, 5 or 6 years. But after 2 years on the boat, I think it was about 2 years, 2.5 years, and then I got the call up, and that was compulsory to go in the Navy.
So how old were you then?
Oh, I must have been about 20.
Okay.
21. I can't remember really.
Yeah, because when they called you up to go in the Navy, was that for the Korean War?
That was in the Korean War.
Because the
Korean War lasted till about 1953.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did you go over to Korea?
No, that was, listen. I was called up.
Yeah.
And I went, but if you've been called up, you're not sending you straight up. You first have to go for training sessions.
Yeah.
That means sitting, how to handle cannons, And then the Oerlikon was that was air protection. The Bofors, I remember, there was the cannons for shooting other ships and things like that. And they train you. They get another ship going on the water, and then they put them on the back on a long hole. And they put a sort of a flag on, and then you have to shoot on there.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
With the cannon.
Huh?
With the cannon?
Yeah. But the only difference was that the cannons themselves, you had the bullet, but they were not explosive in the bullet.
Okay.
But the bullet went still there in.
How big are those bullets?
Well, they're that big.
About the size
Roughly.
of this?
Oh, yeah, something, maybe a little bit bigger too.
Bigger than
something like that, yeah.
Bigger than a smart shaker.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big bullet.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And they go, I just but it's. Dus anyway, after the training session, and then they said to me, well, everybody, like my brothers, they were all unlucky, because they had to stay in over 2 years.
How come?
That was the compulsory time you had to be in the armed forces.
To get trained?
Yeah.
Okay.
But for me, signing up just to go to Korea, that was only, I think, 2 months or 3 months, wasn't it? Then you go in for minesweeping, and then you came out, and that was it. And then after that, you could sign up again, because then it was up to you.
Okay.
But if you didn't want any more,
hold on a minute. Yeah.
If you didn't want any more, then you're free.
Okay, so it's compulsory to do one deployment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that wasn't that long.
So how old were you when you got deployed? Because
well, I must have been 20, maybe 22. I don't know.
And then, what happened? What's the process of when you leave the Netherlands on your ship? Because it's a minesweeper ship, right?
Yeah.
So you're on a minesweeper ship. You go across the world.
Yeah.
What ocean? The Indian Ocean? You going across the Indian Ocean?
Oh shit! No, yeah. I can't remember now.
You go from the Netherlands. You go to the Asian waters where Korea is.
Yeah.
Between China and Korea, right?
Yeah.
And you just sweep out the mines.
Yeah,
in the
but
water.
that's the sweeping. See, the thing is, the minesweeper. What you know what a minesweeper is?
Yeah,
you get a long cable behind your boat.
Yeah.
And they got a project, an area that had to be swept.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that's what we did. It's a pretty boring thing.
Yeah.
It's not really exciting. Dus anyway, after that was finished, the session was finished, and then we went back to the Netherlands, and there's another boat coming in to succeed you. You know what I mean?
To do more minesweeping.
To do more that work.
And did you ever see any mines explode?
No, we never had any. No.
You never had any?
No, nothing.
So was it just precautionary, or?
Yeah, well, listen, the thing is, I'll tell you, the situation was, I don't know, the Yanks, North Korea, that rumbled right over South Korea, and they were ready on the down port there. They were actually, South Korea, I don't know if you know that, was totally defeated.
No, I didn't know that.
Didn't know that.
No,
they were totally defeated. Now, and there was also, I believe, some British and American soldiers. They were that time fighting with the with the South Koreans, because they were supported by the
Sure.
Yanks, and they were totally wiped off the South Peninsula. It was all North Korean. But then you heard about MacArthur. He was a very smart man.
You told me about him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the center of Korea, between North, there was the in between North and South, what was the border that time, and then the Yanks launched an operation.
Talking to the microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They launched an operation, an amphibie operation, and then brought all soldiers right in the center of Korea there.
Yeah.
And the North Koreans were not prepared for that. And that was the reason they want to get the sea there, that make sure that there was no mines or anything, that the Yanks just can get in all the time to get the troops on the land.
Yeah, makes sense.
You have to have a good look on in the thing. And that was the reason. Now, after the Yanks successfully did that, cut the North Koreans off from all the thing, and the North Koreans were gone. They were finished.
Yeah.
And what actually happened then, that was that MacArthur, the Yanks actually occupied whole North Korea. You know that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, yes, they did. Right up to the Chinese border.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. You have a good any mystery. You will find that out. And now, what's happened then after that? Then the Chinese came in.
Mm.
See, that was and then the Chinese army came in, and then eventually they had a little bit of still fighting up against the Chinese, but the Chinese then they decided to start talking. And then they were we made the border the same, and we stopped fighting. And that is what the situation is today. That was North Korea. But North Korea was, if the Chinese wouldn't come in, that would be all under the Western influence.
Yeah.
You know, that's what's happened. That's only in a very short.
And it stayed that way up until now.
Yeah,
it's still the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, but
So,
that is the situation. But in the Korean War, there was all people. There's so many countries were involved in it.
Yeah.
The Netherlands.
And how was your experience during going on the boat, going there, and then going back?
Just not really much. Really.
Just boring
on the boat. Yeah.
So what was because you would have been 21 when you went into the Navy.
Yeah.
But before that, when you were in the Merchant Navy, is that when you got stuck in Sweden?
Huh?
Remember you're telling me you got stuck in Sweden.
Oh, yeah. But
was that when you were younger?
Was that before I went in the Navy or after? I can't remember now. Yeah, I was on the Schokland. Now, in the Schokland, after I finished my military service, then the captain, he owned that boat, and I got really good on with that guy. We were more or less French, you know. And then he said, "Now, Pete, I want you back."
Yeah.
Dus I said, okay. And I had dus then, after my military service, I went back to the Schokland again. Yeah. You will see that in my paperwork.
Yeah.
I give it to you. Yeah. You can see that to Scotland, and then later on
And so
a
that's-
yacht, and then
That's when you're just delivering things to other countries. It's just trade, involved in trade.
yeah. And the main trade was always, then you got, for example, all different stuff if you went over there, but the main thing was always to take the wood.
Okay, the wood.
The wood from Sweden, in planks, and all the thing, that went to Holland
Okay.
for the building,
Yeah.
building material. And it all came from Sweden. I tell you another thing, you doesn't know. The girl I had in Sweden, now listen to that, you will not believe this. Her name was, I never forget her name, because this is my first lover. Vanja Anderson was her name.
Yeah.
Now I've been listening in the paper that the Swedish have just nominated the Prime Minister. Her name is Vanja Anderson. Would you believe this? You get to the paper.
I'm gonna have a look online now.
Yeah, no. It might be a little bit different, the Vanja the Finn, but it is Anderson. Now, you lit on the thing, and I couldn't believe it. But that cannot be her. But she looked like her. I've seen her on the photograph. And I thought by myself, she looks, well, I never got any photos of her.
But how old is the new Prime Minister of Sweden?
She couldn't be.
Oh, it couldn't be the same.
No. Because that girl was about the same age as me.
Sure.
And I was about 21, maybe 22, I can't remember now.
Yeah.
And dus but it could be even her daughter.
Maybe.
You never know.
Maybe.
But of course, there's a lot of other names. Anderson.
Sure.
But she looked at the time, my memory was still, and I saw the Prime Minister, was a photograph in the paper. And I said, God, she looks exactly like the girl I had that time. Blonde and thing. That was incredible.
Yeah, so we have to contact Sweden then.
Yeah. Well, what's happened was that I met that girl was because, I tell you the truth, Sweden, that time, was liquor free.
Oh.
The government would not, the citizen, they could not buy any alcohol. That was prohibited.
Yeah.
It's just like here, that the people cannot buy my meth unless illegal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, what we did on the boat, and we knew that, we got the liquor in Holland. That was in Holland was like liquor, like Geneva, things like that. That was free. We could, well, not free, but we could buy, and it was particularly on the boat. In the boat was everything was tax-free.
Okay.
Now, liquor, even in Holland, it was free for sale, but it was expensive. See, I can remember, I think in Holland you had to buy for a bottle of liquor that time. Geneva, that was the thing, a liter. That was, you heard about Geneva?
Yeah, I've heard about it.
Yeah.
Isn't that gin?
Yeah, gin, yeah. Opposite that English, yeah. Gin, yeah. And that was about, say, $30 a bottle. It was guldens we had, but say about... but on the boat we get it for $2 because tax-free.
Okay.
Cigarettes too, on the boat.
Yeah.
Tax-free. You buy a packet of cigarettes, that time in Holland, I can't remember now what the price was. But on the boat, you could buy it for a quarter or less than a quarter of the price.
Okay.
Because the boat we load up at stuff, but because you go out,
Yeah.
tax free.
And that's how you got the girls in Sweden.
Now, then listen, and we bought always the liquor. It wasn't only me, but that time we were locked up in a pack ice. We couldn't get out. And eventually...
And that's ice around the boat.
Yeah, and we walked around the boat.
Is that in the harbour?
No, that was in the mid-sea, in the eastern... what's it called? There's a... What that sea? Is that Oost Sea or so called? I'm not sure. But anyway, there was all pack ice. That all came from the north. And then eventually the captain, the Swedish government was helping the boats.
Yeah.
They sent an icebreaker to her. And then we had to get cooked in the harbour. Now, but that time, we couldn't get out. We had to wait till all the pack ice was gone. There was no boat. The time we were in the harbour, we couldn't get out. Dus then we stayed there, I think about a month, mate, in that same place.
Just on the boat?
On the boat. But then on the boat we went out, of course.
Oh.
Yeah, you can...
Sure, so you're in the harbour and you just go on and off the boat?
Yeah. You have to do your work. You work what you normally does on the boat, just the cleaning up and things like that. But of course, the main work was always on sea. But the big engine didn't. That was only the auxiliary engines just for the light and for the thing. You know what I mean? And then, as I say, after 4 or 5 o'clock, and then you went out. And then I had a couple of. I met a couple of guys there, Swedish guys, and of course you do a little bit of a trade with the Geneva.
Yeah.
Gin.
Trade what? Alcohol for girls?
Yeah. And no, that wasn't like that. And he said to me, oh, yeah, he said, you got any, just, oh, yeah, he said, we got a nice girl, Dus then I was brought with a nice girl that time. And
so that's how you met girls. You just
with through the guys.
Yeah.
With the gin.
So you give.
Yeah.
Were they just normal guys on the street, just average, or was that their job?
Nah, it wasn't their job.
It was just some guys that wanted to get drunk.
Yeah, they were in Sweden. They were. The people, they were screaming out for alcohol, And girls, no, because if it is prohibited.
Sure, yeah, then you want to do it.
The same thing as here with the Met, they're coming in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's how that went. But yeah, I don't think it's not now the Swedish government, you're allowed to drink and thing. But that time, there was no alcohol for sale.
So did they invite you to a party or something, or they just...
Yeah, they got the party, and then you had a drink, and then, you know, that's what I mean. And,
okay.
And then we had some music, and you had some fun, you know what I mean.
Okay, yeah, that's that's how you get some fun, eh?
That's right. Yeah. Dus, and then the Schokland. The Schokland was...
So how long did you stay after... So that's a long time, because how long were you in the Merchant Navy? Because you went around Africa and South America.
Oh, yeah, but that was later, after Schokland.
Okay.
After the Schokland.
So when you're 22, what happens after that?
No, there was... I can't now remember. But I was about 5 years, I think, up to Schokland altogether. In between you had the Navy. And then after that, I can't remember now what's happened after that. But at least I went, I think I could. I went to the, what is the name of the company in Rotterdam? Hang on, I just get that up. I can't remember their name now. But anyway, that company had big boats,
Okay.
a big cargo boat.
Yeah.
And because I could get much more money that,
Yeah, on a big boat.
and you have to remember that my whole life on the boats, I was supporting my family. I had nothing to do. My family didn't feed me, nothing. I was getting fed by the boats, but I always made over, I think, and that was a lot of money those days. I think $200 a month, I think.
Okay.
200 or 300 a month, every month. And I did that because my old man died. It's right up till my mum actually find another man that time. That was your second marriage. And my old man was dead already. Dus I've been my whole life, I'll be supporting people.
Yeah.
Right? And even now, I'll always be supporting you.
Yeah, I know.
And John.
Yeah.
And Pete. You know, you just haven't. Nobody ever supported me. I always be supported to everybody. Yeah. But, oh, hang on. No, I know the name now. The Rotterdamse Lloyd.
Okay.
They had boats, and they were always around Africa.
Okay.
Yeah. and I just have a look at the name of that boat.
So, how old were you when you joined this company?
Well, I must have been. Yeah, if you get on the paperwork, you can see it.
Yeah, that's all
but
right.
I believe I was 22, 23 maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
Or, you know.
So we're now in your early 20s now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dus then I went by the Rotterdamse Lloyd. And then we went first always to the Suez Canal. And first
That's in South America. Or that's in Central America, right?
No. Suez Canal is Egypt.
Oh, Egypt.
You go over the Mediterranean.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the Panama Canal.
Yeah, no, we've been there too.
Oh,
we went over there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because when that would have been 1956, Morocco gains independence from France and Spain. And are they connected to the Suez Canal as well? No, not Morocco, just Egypt.
Egypt.
Yeah.
That is where the Suez Canal was. And that time, the Egypt was controlled by the British.
Okay.
Yeah. There was, listen, the time I went over there, that was, Africa was controlled by the French,
Yeah.
the British, the Portuguese, and the only country that was self-supported, that was South Africa. And that was controlled by the Dutch, the Dutch Boers, and that was their state, South Africa. Yeah. And the rest, that was always just...
And what are the Boers, Dutch Boers? Are they just like farmers or something? Or?
Yeah. See, what actually happened was with... they get back in the old days, see, the Dutch were involved, or they controlled what is now Indonesia, Java and New Guinea, I believe, and Sumatra. That was all controlled by the Dutch. Even Bali. You know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, now you know now. Now, at that time, they had sailing boats, because the Dutch were good in building boats, always been on boats, and they needed between actually from Holland to Indonesia, to Jakarta. They needed something in between for food supply. See, that time you didn't have no fridges yet and all the other stuff that didn't exist. And then there were Dutch boers, they were actually farmers. Boer is a Dutch name for farmer. Okay, and they took some, say, Dutch farmers over there to South Africa. And you have to remember that was in the 15th century.
That's a long time ago.
Long time back, yeah. But that is from where it started.
Because the Dutch were actually world leaders at some point, right? In the 15th century.
Yeah. And in the 15th century and the 16th century, there was actually, in South Africa, there were no any people, there were no tribes, no black tribes, what you had in the other African countries. You had
so it was unoccupied.
It was unoccupied. By the time the Dutch farmers started there, they were starting only there to supply fresh food for the Dutch boats. They went to Indonesia. And that's how it started. And then in the end, in 1800, I don't know if you know how good in your history, then the British came in and they wanted to conquer it.
Oh. No.
Yeah. And they did conquer, but in the end, the Dutch farmers, that's why they're still actually, they got still the overhand, and in the end they formed a government. Yeah, and that's how you got South Africa as a mixture of people, British, Dutch from years ago, of course. And but they were the only ones that were actually, in my time, they were the only ones that were, all the other ones were all controlled by what I was telling you now.
Yeah.
Now, the first place we always went was Djibouti. Now, Djibouti was French, controlled by the French that time, South Africa. And then, but Djibouti was never, for reasons, it was never a good place for going out or nothing. That was nothing. But from then on, we usually Mombasa. That was controlled by the English. And that was the place.
Where's Mombasa?
Mombasa, that is in, you have to get your, Mombasa, that was part of British Africa.
Okay. At that time.
Yeah, on the time, yeah. Not now, they're all independent now.
Yeah.
But Mombasa is still there, the name is still there. The place is still there, yeah. But that was the place, that was a lot of women. That was the first time I ever had a black woman in my life. That was in Mombasa. Yeah. And that was Mombasa. Then from then on we went to Mozambique. And that was, what's the name of this place, isn't it? Yeah, hang on. I can't think of. I just have to think about that one. But that was also a place where a lot of women there, nice women too.
Mozambique.
Yeah, Mozambique. But that was the name of the country.
What country is that now?
Well, it's also Africa. But I think it's still Mozambique.
Yeah, it's a country, yeah.
Yeah. Lorenzo Marques, yeah. That was the place there. We went over there. Lorenzo Marques.
That's on the east coast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Mombasa was also on the east coast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Mombasa would have been. Where is Mombasa?
Halfway there, roughly.
Halfway.
Yeah, on the east coast in Africa. Yeah.
Oh, that's in modern day Kenya. It's now Kenya. Yeah. So you went from Mombasa down to Mozambique. Which
Yeah, Lorenzo Marcus.
Yeah.
I remember now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Lorenzo Marcus was also what a bloody nice woman there, I tell you. Yeah, absolutely incredible. The time we went over there, mate. And then we went to around the
Lorenzo
coast.
Marcus is in Mozambique.
Hey?
Is
What?
Lorenzo Marcus in Mozambique?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I wonder
there's,
if that's still there.
there's also another place I can't remember now. But Lorenzo Marcus is in Mozambique. Yeah, you seen it?
Yeah, I just looking at on the map
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Just to check it out.
Yeah. And then we went around to South Africa. And
So after the Suez Canal, the first stop is
Djibouti.
Djibouti.
Yeah.
Whereabouts is that?
That's on the east coast, the top. That's just after Suez Canal.
Oh, that must be Somalia today.
Yeah.
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 And then Mombasa, and then Mozambique, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
and then South Africa,
Yeah, then you go in South Africa.
and then you come around.
You come around, yeah.
Yeah. And then where do you go from there?
Yeah, then we went to... Gee, I can't... there's more places there. What's that in South Africa? Yeah, well, I can't remember the place now. Oh, there were 2 or 3 places in South Africa.
So did you stop anywhere on the west coast?
Yeah, then you go on the west coast.
Yeah.
You go underneath and then you go to the west coast.
Yeah.
Yeah, then we went to the west coast, yeah.
All
And
right.
then we get in, then you got another Portuguese after South Africa.
Oh, is that Angola?
Hey?
Is that Angola?
Yeah, I think it is, yeah. And then you go up.
So what was was that your first time seeing African people?
Yeah, that was the first time.
And what was that like for you, coming from Europe where it's just all white people, right?
Yeah.
What's that experience like? Did you know about colored people?
No, to me it was a very good experience. You remember you have to remember that all those countries that time, they were quiet. You didn't have any uprising.
Okay.
Like you now have, you read in the paper, you got all, apparently,
So it's very
criminal groups, but in those days, it didn't exist. Now, there might be a little bit, but hardly any noticeable.
Why do you think it doesn't exist? It didn't exist back then.
I don't know. It's just today, if you look today, the trouble today in the world has never been like that before. You know, there's uprisings everywhere.
Sure. So when how old would you would have been in your mid-20s, right?
Yeah.
Around what, 21 to 26?
Yeah.
And you're going through Africa for the first time.
Yeah.
And did you ever see a black person in the Netherlands growing up?
Hardly. I can't remember any seeing a black person in the Netherlands now.
All right. So you go to Africa, you see your first...
Well, more or less the first.
Yeah, more or less the first.
Yeah.
And then what was that like? Could you communicate with them? Did they speak?
Oh, I had no problems with that, mate. No.
Was everyone speaking English?
Yeah. If you're from Mombasa, that was all English people.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And then we also got a lot of people in Mombasa, and also they came on board. They were workers, painting and the ship, and they were cheap labor,
Okay.
and they stayed with us. Usually, by the time we came back, you know.
All right. So let's go one more story, and then we'll make it an end for today.
Yeah.
But I remember you telling me that when you went around Africa, that the captain would always have two girls.
Well, they usually.
And everyone else would have one. How did that work?
There was no problem. There might other guys in the ship that have had two girls too. I don't know. There was a big boat. There was from the Rotterdamse Lloyd. It was the Wonosari. But it is in the book. I give you the book.
Okay,
That show you all the
Yeah.
thing. And then also from Africa, then you usually went to the, been a couple of times to Panama Canal too.
So
around there too.
So where did you have at that time when you were going around Africa, what was the best place to be in at that time?
Oh, it's very hard to say.
Where did you have the most fun?
Well, I think Lorenzo Marcus was very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very nice people. Yeah, and Mombasa was very good too, I must say that. Yeah.
And the food and the culture and...
Oh, yeah. See, the thing actually now, you might go now, that's all changed now, you know what I mean.
Yeah,
But
it's a different
But
time.
you have to remember that in those days, it's, because it says in the Bible too, mate, there will be trouble as never been before. You look in it and it is coming true. You look at the coronavirus. And that wasn't in those days, mate.
We'll see how things go.
Eh?
We'll see how things go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're going around... So from Africa, at the end of... What's the last stop in Africa? You go back to the Netherlands?
Yeah.
On this boat?
Yeah.
And then it's just a round trip every
and
time?
and then you go back to the Netherlands. You get... So everywhere you get different... See, that time, there were no containers yet.
Yeah.
Because, and I've been on the first container service that was later on in Britain. That I went on the, that was another, well, that is another story, but that was the time I was by the Rotterdamse Lloyd, and that was always around Africa, and then I think there was that other boat, the Wonosari, and then we went to the United States, to the Panama. Oh yeah, to the Panama, and Canada, around the Latin America there. Yeah, Latin America was. I can't remember now what that place. That was always. See, the thing actually also you have to remember that even if you be in the boat, it is not like you're coming on the boat and you go straight and have a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. There's a lot of
work. You have to do your work.
Yeah.
And then you get after that time, if that is passed, and then you can go. If you're free, you can go.
If you want some G booty,
you get on the passenger side, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's I'll be.
So last question before we end it for today.
Yeah.
So we've made it to your mid-20s. So that would have been in the 1950s? 1950 to
1950s.
Yeah, so say mid-1950s to 1960?
Yeah, 1960s. After that,
yeah,
I can't remember now how long I was on the Wonosari, and then
okay, let's just say mid 1950s. when you're going around Africa,
Yeah,
okay?
I made many trips around Africa.
Many trips around Africa.
Yeah, yeah.
Which sounded like an amazing experience. Where were the best women? In your opinion?
Yeah. Oh, they were all good, mate. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's at that time when you have you go through World War II, and there wouldn't have been much media or people telling you about other cultures, right? At that time, did you know about other
what?
At the time when you were going through school and you were growing up in the Netherlands?
Yeah.
What was your idea of people from other parts of the world, whether it be African or South American or Asian? If you've never seen them before, what do you think of before you've seen them? Because the way I've grown up, I've seen mixed people since I've been small. I've seen Africans, Asians, Mexican.
Well, New Zealand got all time.
Yeah, exactly. But what I'm asking you is, from your perspective, when you grow up and you haven't seen that, or it's very rare to see it, and then you see it. What is it like, or what's your perception?
Oh no, I never had any problems with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there, at the time, there's no narratives about different people. There's no stories about other people.
No, we just you had the fun on the boat sometimes too.
Sure.
But
like, for example, today there's a lot of stereotypes about if you're Pacific Islander, if you're African, or if you.
Oh, you have to remember there was on the boat was totally Dutch. There were no color people on the boat.
Yeah, on the
there
boat.
Was all Paki. Yeah.
But when you go to Africa.
But if you go, you visit those people.
Yeah.
You're not really too much involved with them.
Sure. Okay. You just.
You're just more or less there.
It's kind of like a holiday almost.
Well, after you finish work on the boat, and then you go up and
you have a break,
and you go. They usually, we usually always get there. You go. You got a special. You had that here in what's his name? In Auckland too, in the Auckland Harbour. Yeah, you got the pubs there.
Okay, yeah.
And it's the same over there.
Yeah.
You get the pubs. In the pubs, you get the beer.
Yeah.
And then you get ladies dancing.
Yeah.
That's...
So, it's a different dynamic. Yeah.
It's all here. I remember the time here, once I was here, I can remember the pub here. They were even... that was here in New Zealand, and I went here in Auckland. That time I was already emigrated here. Yeah. But, that's... it's about the main thing. I went on the boats. I wanted to be independent, and I don't want to be dependent on my parents anymore for food and everything.
Yeah.
So it's on the boat. They supply you the food. You got no problems with that. You know what I mean? And they supply you. You can have on the boat too. Well, you're not allowed to be drunk, but after, if you did your work, and the many times I had another mate, engine drivers, and then we had a beer together,
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
Cool.
As engine driver, you was pretty well off. You had your own hut, your own bedroom. You didn't sleep with anybody else.
Oh, that's
if
good.
you would have been AB seaman, whatever, then they all were sleeping 2 or 3 in a thing.
So you had your own privacy.
But I had my own privacy.
Yeah.
Engine driver was a really, I really enjoyed it. It was a really good job,
Yeah.
Yeah. Dus here we are. Dus sometimes it can be very stressful because, the things sometimes happen.
It's a big responsibility.
Yeah, and you got your responsibility. There is so much in. I can't really, well, if I had to explain it that all.
Yeah, that's all right. I think we'll leave it at that today.
Yeah.
And next week when I have you over again, then we'll continue on with your life story.
Yeah.
All right.
But that is roughly the my life so far. Yeah. No.
All right, thanks, Dad. Appreciate it.
No.
I'll